Hi, we're here with Patty Miller from Eel River Bar First Nation, and Patty's going to teach us today about the 13 moons.
Hi everyone. Here to talk about the 13 Mi'kmaq moons. And 13 Mi'kmaq moons is an ecological calendar based on the seasons and what happens during each season. So instead of having the 12 calendar months, the Mi'kmaq have mark the passage of time through the moon system and our solar system. And in each phase of the moon, when they go from a new moon to a dark moon, there's something happening in the environment that goes along with each of the 13 moons.
So what exactly are the 13 different moons?
Well, they're based off of those 28 days. So it wouldn't necessarily be exactly January, February, March like we have our Gregorian calendars. It's basically wherever those 28 days lie. So say in January, it's called the Tommy Cod moon. I can't say it in Mi'kmaq. My Mi'kmaq is limited. But so those, when you talk about the January moon or the Tommy Cod moon, it's when over in the, where Fundy, the tides go down low. So there, the Tommy Cod would come up and spawn, but when the tide would go so low, the ice would come up and the Tommy Cod would be on there, and that was the time to go harvest that. And then February, you're looking at Ugpi'Ganjig, and I hope I said that right, and I love saying that word, but it is the great moon, and it's February we know is the hardest month for everybody. I mean, so back in the day when there was no grocery stores or whatever, that was the time period where community would come together and bring the resources that they had to share with each other, because at that time of the year, supplies would be scarce, and you've gone through your supplies that you've gathered through this summer and winter fall months. So it would a community would come together. But it's also, Ugpi'Ganjig is the, I guess the spirit of that time. And they would give a spirit offering plate. So they'd offer up the food to Ugpi'Ganjig in hopes to have an easier winter. Okay. So those months wouldn't be so harsh. And so if you look at what they did tens of hundreds of thousands of years ago, as opposed to like they look at the groundhog? Yeah. So Groundhog Day, and they look and they're, are we going to have a good winter or are we going to have a harsh winter? It's along the same thought process.
So the moons also serve as a kind of a how-to guide.
Yes.
Like this is what we need to focus on this month. And
yeah, and for Mi'kmaq people, their first, I guess, teachers was the land and learning from the land and how to be, advocates of the land and conserve, but also knowing what to eat and when to eat it and when to harvest and when not to harvest based off of what the animals were doing. And so they used everything around them to tell them what they should and how they should be, harvesting and storing, doing all that stuff. So those 13 moons are really important for their way of life.
Okay. Now you said that those were the first teachers. Now, how has that information been passed down along the way?
Mi'kmaq people have always used an oral tradition, so they've been passed down through many stories and also through teachings. So if you have somebody in your family who's a hunter, well, they have learned through the years of when to hunt. Moose hunting shouldn't be in certain times of the year because, your moose are getting ready to have their baby. So you don't go moose hunting during those times. And also sometimes moose are thinner because they've gone through the whole summer, so they need to be fattening up. So they wait, and also waiting into the fall to do your moose harvests, because you don't want to do it in the hotter weather, because then you're spoiling your meat. So all of those things are passed down through generation and generation, being taught from person to person. So a lot of that has been passed down. Now, unfortunately, due to colonization and assimilation, some of these things have been, I wouldn't say lost, because they're not lost, but not everybody has an opportunity to be a part of them. I've never been a part of a hunting or fishing family, so these are something that I had to learn through listening to elders and reading and doing those things, and paying attention to what your hunter and fisher people are doing, where I've never got to experience it myself. So those things, I guess the experiences are lost, not the knowledge is not lost, because the knowledge is still there. One of the things that has changed over time is what's happening during the time of the moons. So if you think about the way our environment has changed over the millennia, over the years, there has been a lot of changes through, there's been a lot of environmental changes through global warming and stuff like that. So when you listen to the elders speak, they speak about how difficult it is now to find medicines. They have to go further into the woods. They have to harvest at different times. Things are changing because global warming and things have changed their environments. So they have to look at that. So the moon system, even though it runs on the same 28 days, things are happening later because of how far we have to go and what needs to happen during those times. So it's a lot of changes in that way have impacted our fishers and our harvesters. So it's pretty it's interesting, but it's unfortunate that those things are happening. But I think for First Nations people, they've been able to adapt and still able to use their traditional knowledge in that way.
By applying the knowledge.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, where can someone go to learn more about these?
13 Mi'kmaq moons. You can find them online. There's YouTube videos on the 13 Mi'kmaq moons. There's, I don't know the name of the technical authors, but there's a 13 Mi'kmaq moons book that has just been published, I do believe, in the last 2 years. So that's out there. If you have any connection to First Nation community and First Nations elders, you can offer tobacco and ask them if they'd be able to give you a conversation and teachings about those. So there's lots of ways to do it now. It's not just something that's specific for certain areas or for certain people. There's a lot more information out there, but always the best way is take your tobacco offering and see one of get it from the source. Yeah.
Nice. And is there anything else that you would like to share with us?
I think the best thing to do, I think what I would love for this kind of series to do is to get people talking and get people asking questions, and not just asking First Nation people questions, because it's not, even though you want to learn about First Nations people, it's not First Nations people's responsibility to be the teacher all the time. But I think it's something that, as people want to learn, they can go and look things up. And if they're still confused, then find more resources. And don't take the first thing that you find on the internet. Really do your research on what
reputable source.
You need some reputable sources. It's not, Wikipedia doesn't work for everything. So really try to find the best sources for any information that you're looking for. But I think also it's important to see where your where your thoughts lie, where your perspectives lie. We all have a worldview that needs to be unpacked for ourselves before we can go looking into other people's worldviews, because we don't want to bring, I think, negative thoughts or experiences or passed down information over the years, because, there is still racism alive and well in all areas, not just a First Nation context, but across all cultural contexts. So I think we really need to unpack where our perspectives is, where our worldview is, where our bias is, before we can, really dig into somebody else's culture and worldview, just to keep everybody safe, keep yourself safe, make sure you're learning the true information and the true history of those people, because there's two sides to every story, and it's not always the conqueror's view that you need also the other side, and that side is just as, it's even more important, because we really do need a true understanding of that shared history between the peoples in what we now call Canada.
Yes. And also important to learn from the nature around us as well.
Yeah, take the time to sit outside and just be still and be quiet and listen. And, our environment does have a lot to tell us if we just sat and paid attention, and I need to do it the same myself. I'm not sitting here trying to say I do it, but I know for sure that our environment not only teaches us a lot, but it also, gives us good mental health. It gives us a connection to something. And if we're not feeling connected with people, well, we can still have that connection to our environment, and we all need connections.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, Patty.
Thank you.